Okay, let's call to order the meeting of the Town of Newbury's Human Resources Board Subcommittee for the purposes of classification of a new position. Here representing the board are
Diane Doyle,
Mark Fleckman,
John Farrar,
Anthony Antico.
thank you, and we anticipate that Lynn Peabody should be joining us shortly. Additionally, we have with us Deputy Chief Patty Fisher, who's sitting in this afternoon as the hiring authority for this new position, correct?
yes, correct.
Thank you. Patty, as we always do, we just like to open it up to the hiring manager to offer any initial thoughts, observations you want to make, or talk a little bit about the...
Did you call to order?
What I call it.
Did you? Okay.
Thank you.
You bet.
I think you were busy watching that. Anything you want to share to help us understand a little bit better, where this comes from and what you'd like to see happen?
Perfect. Did you want me to make mention of the conversation about the appearance of undue favor or improper influence disclosure form?
Yeah, if you'd like. Just for the record, please understand that Deputy Fisher has in fact filed with the appropriate authorities here in town all of the disclosure forms that are necessary. Deputy Fisher is now a member of this HR board, but for obvious reasons she wouldn't be sitting on this side of the table as a member of the classification subcommittee for a position that sits under her jurisdiction.
Correct.
She is, however, joining us today as the hiring authority in the chief of police's absence. And so Patty, if there's anything you want to share about those disclosures, feel free. If not,
Just that we filed the proper disclosure forms that we needed in order for this to happen, so I just wanted to make a note of that.
Great, thank you again for
That we
that.
did do that. No, thank you for that. As far as the position goes, we have, we're looking for classification of this new position that will be the Director of Animal and Natural Resources. We're at a place where we have two openings that we feel like kind of merged with some pre-existing things, and we're looking for classification for this position. The job description was put together based on the other job descriptions with Tracy and the chief and myself, and looking for a classification.
Straightforward. Okay.
Yeah.
So a new position, kind of an amalgam of duties and responsibilities that previously had been held by multiple people, and as a result of resignations and a look to reorganize, if you will, this piece of the PD, it's led to this.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Let me open it up to board members. Any initial questions of Deputy Chief Fisher or observations anyone would like to share?
no, not at this time.
Well, I had one observation when I was going through the job description, and it's the role. It's the, you call it a multi-role position. And if you read in detail the four positions that are included here, they're very extensive. And it's like we're going from, one individual. We had done, I think, a shellfish constable before. Now we're dealing with animal control, shellfish, harbor master, et cetera, et cetera. It's very, it's huge. I mean, am I reading that correctly?
In essence, you are, but there is, if you look at the descriptions under each responsibility, there is a lot of overlap, which is why we felt that it was good to be able to kind of merge them into one position. And when you look at the harbor master kind of leg of this, that is a self-sufficient piece right now that they'll just be supervising right now. So it really is, having experienced working with the shellfish constable and the animal control officer, I know that it is a big job, but there is a merge between those positions that I think makes a natural position for this.
Okay. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more as we go along with the different pieces. So, you good, Tony?
Yeah, I'm also.
Thank you. Patty, as we always do before we get into the 10 factors, we always explain to the hiring manager who may be sitting with us, especially for the first time, is that the hope, or the expectation I should say, is that as we go through these factors, we'll have an opportunity to do some Q&A. There are occasions when a board member or two might feel they need to be a devil's advocate on a certain piece of the job, or questions about certain elements of it. That's to be expected. It doesn't happen very often, but occasionally it does. And what we try to do is make sure that the blocks fit properly, especially as it relates to other positions within the town. And as Dan, I'm sure, will discuss in a minute, as she usually does, what we do is go through the process, and at the end, we take a breath, and we see where it shows up on the grid. Is it a 13.2, is it a 14.1, a 15.3, whatever. And then we take one final look. Then we kind of survey where this position sits in the hierarchy within town administration, and look at positions of a similar classification in the grid. And then we say, does it make sense? And again, it's challenging because it's really an apple and orange. You might be looking at a senior level position with a DPW and try to compare and contrast it with a senior position in the library, or the PD versus the finance department. Sometimes it's a challenge to see, whether they should sit at the same level. But we get through that pretty well. Sometimes what we need to do is take a step back, review the various factors that we classified. And by the way, you'll see along the way that often it's not a clean, this is a 2 or a 3 or a 4. This one might be a 2.5. This could be a 4.5. And then we take a second look at it and say, does it feel right? Should this position be comparable in classification to a position which sits on the other side of town, or 3 other positions for that matter? Hey, Lynn.
Hi.
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 Nice to meet you, Patty Fisher.
Lynn P.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
They were just describing the process, haven't gotten into the meat yet.
Yep. Good.
So at the end, Patty, what we do is just make sure that it feels right. That it sits within the appropriate grade, the appropriate classification, as it relates to other positions that are classified the same way. And typically it does. Sometimes we have to play with it a little bit. And then we hopefully come to consensus.
Terrific.
Okay?
Yes.
Great. Give you a chance to get settled. Lynn, did you have any thoughts?
No, I actually have all of my stuff here ready.
Okay.
Ready to
Anything,
go?
any introductory comments, or if not, we can dig right in?
No.
Okay.
Right in, please.
The first factor is complexity. By the way, each of these factors rank from 1 to 6, as I'm sure you've seen. This refers to the degree of difficulty of the position, the work performed, what kind of judgment is involved, what kind of decisions are involved, based on the variety of activities there are, the difficulty of the problems faced, so forth and so on. And as you can see, a 1 in this case would be very highly repetitive, very few simple tasks, rarely are decisions made at this level. A 2 would be considered routine. By the way, I should mention, as we go through these factors and rate something a 2 or 3 or 4, the duties and responsibilities don't have to hit every one of the bullet items in a number 2. Often we see that if we're struggling with a ranking, we might feel that, well, 2 of the bullet items sit under a 2, and 2 of the other bullet items sit under a 3. And maybe in that case, we might give it a 2.5. So it's not clean in that respect. There's always a little bit of give and take, if you will. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
A 2 would be routine work. Individual makes decisions regarding setup and sequencing and priority of tasks. A 3 is a position that is somewhat complex. Project, perhaps in nature, some analysis and planning involved. Exceptions can be analyzed and resolved by changes to standard procedures and techniques. Decisions involve identifying alternatives. A 4 is a complex position, may require modification of existing procedures, development of new methods. Analysis and planning are integral parts of the position. Exceptions require in-depth analysis and resolved by changes to administrative and technical procedures, so forth and so on. A 5 is a position that's highly diversified, highly complex, significant amount of planning and analysis, coordination, major interrelated activities, different departments perhaps. This individual makes decisions where in some cases established policies are inadequate. recommends changes to established policy. And a 6 is the top level, which is, it's a policy formulation position. This individual has the responsibility, the authority to make policies for the town or for his or her department. Broad policies, long-term programs, make decisions that serve as guides and directors for the town itself. And typically those policy formulation decisions are left exclusively for the head of the PD, the head of the fire department, DPW, I think. There are a precious few of those in town, but they are policy formulation decisions. So with that in mind, your thinking coming in here?
When I looked at this, I see this landing someplace between a 3 and a 4, and I'll explain to you why.
Okay.
Where we are talking about the merge of a few programs, I look at the infancy stages of this job landing in a 4. However, the long term, once that's done, it would fall more in a 3.
Okay.
So that's why I was landing between those two for this.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll open it up in a second. It just brought one more thing to mind. I'm glad you mentioned it, Betty. What we try to do is stay away from what we call one-offs. If once a year or twice a year, an individual might be responsible for X, we don't necessarily consider that a significant piece of the factoring process. If it occurs on a regular basis, if it's twice a month, every month of the year, that's one thing. But if once in every great while, somebody has a responsibility to do something, that typically sits outside of the classification process. So with that in mind, thoughts?
So I have a question. So your vision for this position is more as a department head for the animal control and natural resources. So would this person be overseeing, because they would be supervising an assistant animal control officer, the assistant shellfish, assistant harbor masters, and so forth. So in terms of their day-to-day function, what would that look like?
So they will be responsible for executing those tasks. So right now, we just have hired under what would be this umbrella, our harbor master. So this person would be responsible for doing the responsibilities of animal control and shellfish and knowing how harbor master functions, but they report to the chief of police. So this is not necessarily a department head in that sense. They're more a supervisor of these 3 entities, but they'll be, because we're familiar with the animal control and the shellfish pieces, they'll be executing those.
They'll be out doing the job for those.
So you're
Yes.
supervising people from technically different departments within.
So right now, they'll only be supervising people from the harbor master.
Right.
They will be executing shellfish responsibilities and animal control responsibilities. Now, will that mean that they partner, with other agencies to provide, mutual aid and things like that for us when they're unavailable? There will be that piece of it.
Okay.
But right now, they will be acting as those roles and then coordinating with Harbor Master Sergeant Balonis,
Good.
and then
Okay.
reporting all directly to the chief.
But with the idea that at some point you might have an assistant animal control officer,
I think that's a piece of figuring out
figuring it out.
what this is. Will that be met through MOU and mutual relationships, or is that gonna be something that at some point in the future is needed? There is the possibility of that, but that's not anything that's in this classification right now.
Okay, that's helpful.
Other questions, thoughts? Anyone, so Patty?
I'm
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
again, I go back to my initial comment after going through the job description, and again, you seem to be approaching it as a fractional job, if you will, a position. That you mentioned that sometimes you would take, one person would do this or whatever, but it's one job description. Only one individual is being rated here. So, but I just presume that is the intent, that you're not going to have like the assistant shellfish constable will be doing some of this fellow's job or whatever, things like that.
Yeah, there is no assistant shellfish
Okay.
constable, and there is no assistant
Right.
animal control officer. They will be doing those jobs.
It will be unified in because I I saw like a fractals of this thing floating around, but there has to be just one individual
Yes.
who's answerable, whose responsibilities these are,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay.
So that dovetails with a question I had, and maybe I'm confused by this second paragraph, duties and responsibilities, first page.
Mm-hmm.
The last sentence in that paragraph, Patty, says, "The director," in quotes, "shall supervise all assistant personnel in their aforementioned assignments." So one of my questions was, well, as it exists today, how many personnel are there in these various roles that this person might supervise from time to time?
So right now, we have a harbor master sergeant, we have 3 harbor master assistants, and we have 2 harbor master helpers. So that, I
That's
have that
Department
accounted.
6 in Harbor Master.
In
one.
harbor master, yes.
Okay.
So I have that under the supervision scope,
Okay.
you know, for that information. So that's all, it'd be this person who supervises those people right
Okay.
now. That's what we have.
And ACO,
They will be the animal control officer.
there is no assistant.
There is no assistant.
Okay.
If we coordinate, so through the police department, we can work with other departments who have, through an MOU, so we can get assistance. So let's say this person goes on vacation or is sick. The town still needs somebody to respond to animal complaints and dog bites.
Right.
So this person would be responsible for coordinating that coverage with other area animal control officers, so they would be overseeing that piece of it. But we don't have hired any animal control assistant
Right.
or our shellfish constable assistant.
Yeah, that helps clear up some of the confusion I had, because I could see a scenario where this individual, when he or she was performing the responsibilities on the water,
Mm-hmm,
be it shellfish oriented or harbor master oriented, you might be on the water for an entire tide,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
Or for a day for that matter, depending on what's happening. And then a call comes in for an ACO. And since we don't have an assistant ACO, that's what you're referring to, coverage from other agencies.
Coverage from other agencies, or there are certain animal things that the police officers can handle with the guidance through telephone of the person who's out on the boat.
Okay,
So they can instruct us on what needs to be done
okay,
with that. So they would be responsible for answering their phone and doing that, but there are other ways
Okay.
to offer support when they're out on the water,
Okay.
on
Okay.
vacation and whatnot, that this director would be responsible for coordinating.
okay. So maybe the best way for me to ask it is, when you and the chief were putting this job description together,
Mm-hmm.
sounds like there must have been discussion about making sure that it's a coordinated effort, because this individual may be, outside of town offices or unavailable to
Yes.
do an ACO role
Yes,
for 6 hours or 8 hours at a time.
yes,
And you feel you have sufficient coverage,
yes.
whereas previously there were 2 or 3 individuals, perhaps on a part-time basis, who were covering these various responsibilities, right?
So for animal control, we only had one.
Right, but then you had a shellfish individual.
Yes, but then we
right,
had a shellfish,
And a
yes.
harbor master's assistant.
Yes,
So in theory at least, even though it wasn't a full-time role,
yes,
if a caller came in needing an ACO, whether it was Carol or somebody else would be available,
Yes.
so forth and so on. Okay, so you've accounted for all of that in your
Yes.
planning for this?
procedurally, we are accounting for that,
Okay,
yes.
great, thank you.
Yep,
The one element that I come to that jumped out, and I've put pluses throughout, and the pluses to me mean that extraordinary requirement as the director of so many nuanced locations within the governance. They have to know intimately several factors, become familiar with several venues of responsibility on the water. As the ACO, state responsibilities coordinating for both, and then the logs and reporting to you and the chief. That's a lot of job description. And I keep coming back to the word director. In itself, the word director implies a large level of responsibility. Buck stops here kind of responsibility. And even the very, as Tony spoke earlier, the idea of a multi-role position, that's a lot of mental and social coordination. They're gonna have to get to know a lot of people well beyond the 6 at the harbor level, and well beyond the fact that ACO requires they need to know this community intimately well. Every street, every alley, every woodlot, all the things that go with animals. And I've been caught up in it, as has Mark, where calls into Carol because of being bitten by a rather ferocious animal. And we were bitten, I think, by not the same animal, but brother and sister, and that sort of thing. And basically, all of the coordination that implies just seems to me it raises this position to a spectrum level of 3+ and then some.
And we already have the harbor masters working as part of Shellfish to do that, so there already has been a blend of that already. And what our information from managing animal control is that is a situational response job. So the time constraint of it is call by call. It's not necessarily something, we're not looking to merge 2 40-hour-a-week jobs, together. We see the call volume and believe that it's,
Right.
it's feasible.
Okay, great.
Especially under the supervision of the chief of police, where we're offering additional support around those areas in those circumstances where, both of your phones, so to speak, may ring at the same time.
Yeah.
So we have really flushed that out when looking at this job position.
Great, thank you. Lynn?
Yeah, why are we bringing this job forward now?
Because we have a unique opportunity where 2 positions that are resigning, and we have an opportunity to make this whole program kind of one and put it together the way that we feel it should be.
So we just rated that Shellfish position and the assistant harbor master position, and the Shellfish constable resigned and left September 25th for another position.
Okay.
And the animal control officer is also retiring.
Okay.
And so the animal control officer is, as it stands currently, is a stipend position on an as-needed basis. There's no hours set to that position. It's not like she works 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week. I just would be curious, do you have any sense of how many hours she's working or was working?
It varies.
varies.
It varies based, and it's call volume based, and I don't have any of our call stats with us, but we do keep those.
So that's why we're doing it now, because both one retirement, one resignation has led us to a place where it seemed, you missed that when Patty first spoke, it was an opportunity to combine both these roles under the police department.
Okay. So, apologies for not hearing the beginning of the conversation. So the animal control officer is one of them that is vacant, and that we're merging in with this other position. If the animal control, so the director is going to be the animal control officer?
Yes.
Okay, so if they're working stipend 20 to 30 hours a week, but if it's a busy week, is there enough capacity in this director position to be able to do, as we've been discussing, it sounds like kind of a big job. And so is it too big for one position, for a director position? Is there too much there?
No, and the chief, the town manager, and I have flushed this out, looking at all the information, having worked with animal control, harbor master, and Shellfish, and we believe that this is a reasonable position given all of their responsibilities, duties, and everything that they've all done. And again, harbor master, we're not eliminating harbor master sergeant. Harbor master is still going to run the way that it's run. Harbor master Sergeant Balonish is reporting to this director, who then reports directly to the chief. So it's, from our point of view, bringing it forward, we wouldn't have brought it to classification if it seemed like an unrealistic job description. based on our experience with the positions.
And when we
Thank
rate-
you.
when we
Yeah,
rate-
thank you.
When we rated the assistant harbor master position too, we added in the requirement that they get certified and that they provide coverage out on the
On
water
flats,
in the absence of the shellfish
Yeah,
constable, so.
After much discussion.
Right,
So,
okay.
you know, those folks could jump in if he had to attend to something else. So it does seem like a very fluid position, it's gonna require a lot of coordination. To get back, I would say at least a 4 would be what I would say.
I can support that.
At least, if not more,
Works?
if you take the role seriously.
Major usually makes decisions.
And-
Are you
and
thinking the 4 to 5?
It is a likelihood that that position will expand too because of
Sure.
state requirements and an elderly population.
The elderly population?
Well, the idea that a lot of animals in this town are living with elders and all that that implies.
I don't know if the last 2 bullets under 5 where it would recommend policy.
That was my concern. I don't see it rising to the level of a 5 in terms of policy discussions, and certainly there's a lot of analysis and planning involved, no question. Planning is an integral part of this, especially given the multifaceted role, but personally, I don't see it getting up above a 4.
I have another question. So you mentioned, as you were explaining, that you see it between a 3 and 4, and that ongoing, you think that some of these duties might actually relax a little bit from the initial outset of putting this director position in place. Did I understand that correctly?
So my sentiment behind that was, as the difficulty of, the complexity of the original, the infant pieces of putting these together and working out the schedule and working out those MOU kind of partnerships for coverage
Right.
on the onset, to me was 100% a 4.
Uh-huh.
But once you have those relationships and you've set those schedules, you know, my question was, does it drop down long-term kind of closer to a 3? That was
Yeah.
my
Okay.
thinking between the two. It's a big task that they'll work with the support of the police department up front. But once those relationships are made and those schedules are placed, then we'll go from there.
So comment on that. Looking at the position itself, you know, and if you know, whoever is in the position, and then say they vacate the position, somebody coming in, so now we're, kind of the expectation is it might be about a 3, because relationships have been established, you know, MOUs are in place, you know, whoever's in the director position knows the lay of the land, basically, and they vacate for whatever reason, and we bring in somebody else. We don't want to assume that at that point it's dropped down to a 3, because, you know, somebody new coming in is going to have to rebuild that whole structure, right? So, I don't know, I think that if we're looking at a 4, I would say a 4, you know, rather than between a 4 and a 3, you know, dropping down to a 3.
I can
Makes
support
perfect
that.
sense.
Yep. Let's go around the table and vote on it as a subcommittee. Thoughts?
You want me to start?
Yeah. I'll go backwards next time.
Okay, I think it's a 4.
As do I.
I agree.
4.
4.
4 it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time on that, Patty. I know it's
No, it's,
especially
Laborious.
when
no, I appreciate
I
it.
don't think all the factors will be there,
Yeah.
but again, it's,
Well-
you know, it's complexity, judgment, decision making. That's a
Yeah,
big piece of the
no,
role, so.
it sounds like Patty has done a lot of
Yep.
legwork to even bring it to this point, and so I appreciate all of that.
No, no problem.
Thank you. Education.
Associates.
We talked about, the only question I had was whether, and we always ask this question, Patty. Find it. Education, associate's degree and or higher. Do you want to describe the associate's degree as a prerequisite or a strong preference? There's a
A
difference in terms
prerequisite.
of the candidate pool.
A prerequisite.
A prerequisite, okay.
Yes.
So associate's degree or higher is a prerequisite.
Yes, the one that's required.
Currently knowledgeable of bylaws, MGL, shellfish stuff. Pretty self-explanatory there. And education, if we look at a 3 is formal education beyond the high school diploma. 4 is completion of a 2-year post-secondary degree from a recognized educational institution. Full apprenticeship is mandated. Designated proficiencies, which is what you're also referring to here. Is that a 4?
I have that as a 4.
Questions? Pretty straightforward.
No, pretty straightforward.
Lynn?
I agree.
4. Tony?
4.
4? 4?
Or
Yeah, go back and forth. Thank you. Experience. This refers to the amount of time required to develop the necessary skills. Straightforward.
So I spoke with the town administrator today, if I can interrupt you.
Yeah, please.
I didn't, it's not in the job description, but on a posting, it's 4 to 6 years, if that piece of information is helpful to you, and I
It's
have
very
that
important.
in
Yeah,
an
that's something we
email.
need to know.
Yes,
so we would have to add that in.
yes,
Again, 4 to 6 years required.
experience,
4 to 6 years.
Required before you come into this job?
yes.
Of relative experience or job-related experience? Having,
4 to 6 years at what?
at what?
With experience in, I don't know exactly how we'll word this, but experience in any one of these
Related
categories.
fields.
You can't come into this job with 0 animal control and 0 harbor master and 0 shellfish.
Yeah, if
You've
you-
gotta have 4 to 6 years
If you
in
look
one
at-
or,
Bullet point 6, under knowledge, skill, experience required to be well versed in regs and law related to town of Newbury bylaws, animal control, shellfish constable, and harbor master regulations.
Okay.
Kind of catch-all.
That should go under experience.
And this was one of my big questions, Patty, is, I don't know the candidate pool that exists, but what's the likelihood that you're gonna be able to find somebody who, day one, or within a relatively short period of time, brings subject matter expertise in this diverse set of subject matters? Shellfish, which is different than harbor master, which is different from ACO. Do you anticipate finding people who've got relatively
I
solid
do.
experience in all 3?
I do, because there are other cities and towns who have similar job descriptions for people in this category. We're obviously unique because we're Newbury in our
Right.
location and whatnot. However, it's not unusual that there is some sort of blender bridge between
Okay.
these things. You know, and that's with a knock on wood,
Yeah.
where we're finding, you know, candidates for many postings
Poaching
You
from
know,
another town.
anywhere, but that is our hope. We just
Okay.
can't have someone come in cold with 0 experience in any of these categories.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then it would seem to fit solidly within the 4 category again, 4 to 6 years.
Okay, yes,
I would think it's
I
a
can
4.
support that.
John?
I think so.
Tony?
Yes.
Lynn?
4.
Yes.
Diane?
Yep.
4 it is. Independent action, initiative. Again, this isn't totally dissimilar from complexity and judgment that we talked about in the first one, but it is in fact a separate factor as it relates to this person's independence, you know, rather than being controlled based on, you know, a 500-page policies and procedures manual. 1, this individual works under very close supervision, really no wiggle room whatsoever for creativity or independent action. 2, this individual works under supervision, under direct supervision, but less frequently. It's not, you know, it's not 40 hours a week or whatever it may be of supervision. They do have the opportunity to be independent from time to time. 3, works under occasional supervision, proceeds on their own when a majority of the duties are defined by general instructions and established methods. 4, works within general guidance, works with general guidance and direction from above, but the individual plans and carries out these plans and activities to attain objectives, applies policies and standards widely accepted. Assignments may involve creative work and or innovation. 5, works independently on general assignments most of the time and a 6 again is policy rating.
I have this at a 4.
It doesn't even get close to 5, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, under the authority and permission of the chief of police, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So this is somebody who's beating to a drummer.
That reminds me of something I always struggle with. We may have talked about this before. Under summary, page 1, and in a couple of other places, should it read, and this is just my own meanderings here, should it read under the general supervision of the chief of police or designee?
Yes, please.
It should say designee, that's what I kind of
Yes.
thought, yeah, so we should change that.
That's a good point.
Yes.
Chief of police or designee, and I think there are,
There's a few places.
there's 3 or 4 places where, you know, number 3 under general duties and responsibilities shall accept direction as instructed by the chief of police or designee. Should we just go through that and make sure that there aren't any other spots? I thought that might be the case. Okay, thank you.
I think we addressed that at the harbor master level.
I thought we did, yeah.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Okay, the next factor is consequence of errors. What's the likelihood and the probable effect that errors on the job could be very minor, or they could be catastrophic, or anything in between? And again, we understand that this is a new role where the functionality of the role, the duties, responsibilities are being clearly defined as we speak here. So it's not like it's set in stone, but in terms of errors, one would be minimal. No real impact should this individual, be it in his or her capacity as harbor master, ACO, or shellfish constable, make a mistake. 2, errors are probably detected by others within the work area. 3, errors affect the work of others, but are generally not damaging to the town. Pretty self-explanatory. 4, errors can cause substantial identifiable losses. Losses to the town beyond damage and a waste of inadequate planning, may cause substantial delays in services or programs, could be deterioration in public employee relations. Errors may result in physical injury resulting in lost time. 5, an error could cause a short-term breakdown in the process, serious delays in services, uncoordinated efforts, shortage of parts or components, may cause commitment or withholding of funds, inadequate analysis, that's, the grammar is there, but everybody sees it. 6 would be errors could cause long-term negative consequences to the town with little opportunity to correct the error once it's made, except over a long period of time and at great cost. Okay?
I have this landing at a 4, I think, where they're working with the public on land and water, with the shellfish industry. You know, I think there is that 4 potential, you know, for the delays in services programs, employee public relations, if there are, you know, errors made.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
The only 2 thoughts I bring up are at the harbor master level, just the level of severity if rules of the road are not followed, low wakes, swimmers lanes, that sort of thing. I mean, I'm an inveterate swimmer in the Parker River over 15, 20 years, and where there are harsh markings about 0 wake, I see boats going through there at 12 knots under the keel, and children swimming off the south end of the Parker River. I've often, there's no way to, you know, to patrol that. You need somebody to drop a dime. That's about the only way to get it. Somebody to call the dispatcher and say that I've got a hull number for your boat that I know that's breaking the rules, and then it's your water against theirs kind of thing. There's not enough personnel on that river and on the waterfront. I ocean swim from the federal parking lot up to the last house on Annapolis Way, and there are people inside that Plum Island requirement at 500 feet. They're right up on the beach, dropping off a dog, picking somebody up, and then roaring out. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility there to coordinate with the Coast Guard and meet the rules of the road on Plum Island and on the Parker River and the Merrimack. You just have to wonder where that lists out in potential errors, and then obviously if somebody's mishandling a dog, mistraining a dog, letting that dog loose and having it punished at a financial level or a physical level. Four-legged animals that are very expensive, or human beings that just unfortunately are jogging or walking and that dog gets loose and takes a big bite, and it's not handled properly and you get a second and third event. Where does that all stand? I mean, that's a big potential for dislocation at Town Hall.
So with the animal piece, I'll address that first, because where animal control issues, when they start to become criminal, that's where there's a partnership between the animal control officer and the police department, or it comes to the police department, you know, maybe with the support of the animal control officer. So that piece, when it gets to that extent, I would say it's more under the police hat than the animal control piece. And as far as, you know, anything, like I said, I see it as the four, because we've got to be out on the water, and when we're not, we do rely on people reporting things so that we can handle it through those means. It's a partnership between enforcement and the public in any area, whether you're on the land or the water.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is one that's always very important to me, especially as it relates to positions that have responsibility over anything that can impact the public in a negative way. And you know, if I'm not picking on the library, but you know, if a librarian is misplacing books, you know, there's no potential for damaging impact other than
Confusion among the patrons.
the silliness of misplacing books.
Serial confusion.
Yeah.
Perhaps not the best example, but this is the one where I'm always concerned about protecting the town.
Yeah.
God forbid there is a dog bite incident. God forbid the shellfish, the decision about red tide issues or other things that may be shellfish related, unhandled timely or handled wrong, and somebody becomes very ill as a result. Again, I understand I may be exaggerating to make a point here, but I'm always concerned about the consequence of those kinds of errors, and I would think that this is the kind of role where those errors could, in the wrong hands, show up. So I would say it's at least a 4, and if the group wanted to put it between a 4 and a 5, I'd be okay with that. Other thoughts?
Well, Patty's point's well taken, that it comes down to criminal event and it switches over to Morgan Avenue. And
But that's after the fact. That my point is that that's,
Yeah, but
you know,
it's-
Or upon investigation.
Upon
You know what I
investigation.
mean?
but
There's,
what I'm saying is the damage can be done already, you know.
Well, if it's not reported properly, you're right.
If there's a dog bite, if somebody's eating contaminated shellfish, you can investigate all you want.
Yeah,
The damage is done.
damage is done.
Right.
That's my point. So,
Yeah.
I think it's a big job in that respect, but again, if other people feel it's a 4, I'm happy to defer to that.
Excellent. Have you ever talked to town council about that?
I have not spoken to town council about
Okay,
that.
about the legal ramifications for criminal act, when it reaches over to criminal act, where a family doesn't rein in or improperly conducts himself with dog ownership and all that implies. I mean, have we ever had an incident where it brought lawsuit to the town?
Not that I'm aware of,
Yeah.
and it's if we're talking specifically on dog bites, we're a town that doesn't have a leash law. It's difficult. We do have dog bites. We get the dog bite reports from the hospital. we're familiar with how to process them and handle them. It's something that does happen.
That's the first thing, Patty, I'm sorry, that's the first thing that Carol asked me is, did you go to the emergency room? And I had to respond no, but
Yeah.
Patty took a photograph of the bite, and
Yeah.
I later went to my own attending physician and it was treated.
Because, am I allowed to cross-reference this chart when we look at it as well? Yeah, at this point or no?
Not at this point.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's, I asked first. Okay.
I mean, for your own perusal, that's,
Yeah.
but that's what we try to do if there's later on. if
Could
there
beg
were-
forgiveness instead of ask that. Thank you, Pastor.
Yep, no, I'll ask anytime I go inside the box.
Any other thoughts here, or are we ready to vote on it?
I could live with a 4.
4?
Yeah, 4.
4? Lynn?
Yeah, you bring up a lot of good points and possible scenarios, and so it just kind of gives me pause. You know, I just want to make sure that there's enough weight to this category. But if we are okay with 4, I can support that.
Okay, thank you. Diane?
I'm leaning towards a 4.
I was going to give it a 4.5, but I will defer, and we'll leave it as 4. Good? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Contacts. This refers to the nature of the contacts that this person will develop during the course of his or her work. You know, what is the nature of the working relationships required of the position? By the way, these contacts can be internal or external to the town administration or any of the departments. Obviously, face-to-face communication with the public on the phone, public appearances, which I know you talk about here, and the media from time to time. Who are these contacts? What is the purpose of these contacts? What is the importance to the town? It's not limited to residents or elected officials, members of town boards, appointees, co-workers, could be all the above. And these interactions can be anything from advising and coaching to disciplinary actions. At all times, common courtesy is of course expected. We talk, I think, in the job description about the diversity of contacts, the need to establish good working relationships across various departments within town. We talk from time to time about the need to be able to coordinate with outside agencies, state, federal, media. As Anita Basis, you want to talk a little bit about that, Patty?
I agree with everything you have is in my notes here. And then in addition to, you know, the police departments in outside agencies, whether it's at the select board for any appeals to any, you know, dog restraint orders that are issued, or court for anything that they need to go to testify. So I gave this a 4.
4?
I gave this a 4,
Okay.
yes, for all the reasons you said and then some.
Thank you.
Yes.
Diane,
I think
thoughts?
it's at least a 4.
I think it's at least a 4. I would think almost, I would be able to support a 5. And one of the things that really makes me think of 5 is the second bullet. Successful resolution will result in the stakeholder feeling respected and heard, even if the ultimate decision goes against the stakeholder's personal interest. I could see some of the situations that this person, this position might encounter would fall under that. You know, people are passionate about certain things, you know, pets, dogs, you know, the water, they're passionate about it. I could see, you know, maybe kind of an uncomfortable or an ugly situation arise within, you know, the scope of this position. And so I think to be able to take this one into account, you know, will result in the stakeholder feeling respected and heard. You know, and that takes a little bit of acumen. You know, it doesn't, not everyone can do that. And I think that that's important for this position. So.
One of the benefits of this position being under the police department and what we've seen in the separate roles as they are separately is anytime there's even the hint or the concern of kind of that tumultuous interaction in the different disciplines, that's where the benefit of being part of the police department is. So it's not uncommon for one of them to contact the police department and we'll send an officer or supervisor down to kind of assist in reaching that bullet and making sure that those dialogues and discussions, make it so that the stakeholders are leaving feeling good even if they don't agree with it. So there is that also, that piece in there for it.
Okay, but for a director, you know, in my mind, a director is an elevated position. And I would hope that the director could, you know, bring that to the conversation, you know, whatever's happening, the situation. And so I would expect the director to be able to, you know, provide number 4 bullets, you know, and also, you know, the police can always support and show up and be part of that conversation and, you know, make everybody feel more protected. I totally agree with that. You know, and I guess, I don't know, with coming from my HR background, you know, sometimes situations get ugly and, you know, I think respecting everyone in the room, you know, is so important. That's why I'm kind of leaning towards 5. If the group, you know, would like to scale that back, I could support a 4.5.
I was thinking 4.5 as well, if not a 5. If you look at the bulleted first piece of 5, frequent and important, often around a topic of deep personal concern. The 3 pieces of this role might often put this person in a position where he or she is dealing with, be it voters,
Yep.
who believe they know better than the Coast Guard or the harbor masters, you know, how to properly, you know, run a boat. And
Well,
certainly as it relates to,
zone, you know, that's a perfect example.
and the ACO role. You're not going to get much deeper personal concern for people than an individual who has been asked to keep their dog inside, to keep it on a leash, to keep it away from,
Or
whatever
in
it may be.
quarantine for 15 or
Yeah.
20 days.
And again, to me, this is not one of those one-offs twice a year.
Yeah.
This could happen twice a week. You know. So I'm with Lynn. I would vote for a 4.5 at least. And if the group wanted to go to 5, I'd be okay with that too.
I would go to 5.
Okay.
You're dealing with the public, and that's it.
Yeah.
A delicate balance. And
John, what
you
would you
need
vote?
somebody who's suited, well suited.
What would be your vote?
I'd vote for 5.
5?
6 of one, half dozen of the other. I'm gonna go with 4.5.
Okay.
I would be a 4.5 as well. With two 5s, 2 4.5s.
Oh, I'm the deciding vote. 4.5 is fine for me,
Okay,
I can live with that.
so be it.
Yep.
4.5. Thank you all.
but I appreciate the discussion.
Good discussion. Good conversation.
I just had a question. So this person is also gonna be the animal inspector?
That's part of the animal control piece. Yes.
Because we have an animal inspector stipend and an animal control officer stipend, so those are being merged?
Yes.
Okay.
So this position is going to take both of those?
Well, the animal control officer does both of those roles
Okay.
as the
Part of
stipend
the
position.
responsibility.
Yeah.
But they're 2 separate sort of, I don't want to speak for you.
So one of them, the animal inspector is a state assignment, so the town appoints the person to the state. They do barn inspections, so between October and December every year, the barn inspections need to happen. Those reports go to the state, so the town is just the appointing authority of who's going to do those tasks for the animal inspections.
Is it gonna be the ACO?
Yes, it will be
Okay.
this position. For the town of Newbury, it has always been animal control and barn inspector are merged.
Right.
Because the barn inspector piece is, like I said, it's traditionally, unless something goes incredibly awry, it's that doing the inspections between October and December are the primary pieces of that. They will oversee, they're responsible for reporting, you know, to the state if there's, you know, rabies and things like that. So there's a crossover between animal inspector and barn inspector together.
Question,
Yeah.
is the funding for that also come from the state?
That I don't know for certain, I believe, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be able to give a certain answer for that. But we do have that. That stipend is something we receive right now, whether it's through the state or through the town.
We break supervision into 2 factors. One is character, one is scope. The character is, the nature of the supervision, the frequency of it. Is it part and parcel of the core duties and responsibilities of the role? We've already talked about the fact that there'll be a number of people within the harbor master department that this person will oversee. We'll get to that in a second in terms of numbers, but so clearly there's supervision. A 3 would be limited supervision, does not have full supervisory responsibility for an entire unit, assigns and monitors the work of coworkers, may be involved in recruiting. A 4 supervises others performing related work, recruitment, training, coaching, prioritizing, allocating, completing performance appraisals, terminations, and so forth. A 5 is a general management role. Patty?
I have this as a 5.
A 5? Can you talk about that?
Well, as the job description says, they're supervising the harbor master assistants. They have to coordinate to ensure that the roles and duties are being performed. They have to make sure those logs and payroll records get submitted.
And this is regular supervision, it's not occasional, it's...
This is regular, if they've got a sick day, they're the ones who have got to make sure that they've got contingency plans for coverage in these categories, so that's why I put that at a 5. That's an ongoing thing even after the infancy of the new position is there, that's gonna go.
So I'm curious, in terms of what we discussed earlier, there's an ACO need, this person's underwater, refers it to another agency. Technically, is this person overseeing that ad hoc request or that project work?
So they're maintaining those relationships and coordinating those schedules. It's the police department that would be coordinating with other police, run ACOs. And I'm imagining there may be other alternatives out there that I'm just not thinking of because I'm looking at it through my police lens.
Okay.
But they would be the one working to figure out what are those coverages so that the town and the people in the community don't know that that person is out sick. There's no interruption of service in these categories, so.
So in your eyes, this is a 5, it may have supervision over a department or several units within the same department performing similar work, and they may also have subordinate supervisors. Is that the case here?
Correct, because Harbor Master Sergeant Valonis will be under this person as well, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Straightforward?
Yeah, I think it is, and I think my sense is that one of the driving factors is right back to duties and responsibilities general. And that is maintaining the master logs of all the operating conditions and reporting to the chief and to yourself.
And to make sure they're keeping up with, any subordinates that they have are keeping up with their training and their certification and their yearly, Con Ed and things like that. So that'll be under this person.
Great, thank you.
How many people would typically be under this position?
So right now, it's the only people that are under the Harbor Master Sergeant. We have 3 Harbor Master Assistants and then 2 Harbor Master Helpers.
So 6.
5, right? That's 5. Harbor Master Sergeant, 3 assistants, 2 helpers, 6.
Some of those positions are seasonal?
Yes.
2 of them? 5 of them?
So the only one that's year-round is going to be the Harbor Master Sergeant, depending on if anything is happening. So there have been incidents, water-related incidents, where we have called in the assistant harbor masters to help because there's been a specific incident year-round, so they're available to us
Would you
year-round.
say, give or take half the year, this person will be supervising a staff of 6?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I imagine in the summer, this is a pretty big job between animals out and about and the water activities, but to know that there's 4 people then helping to manage the water activities,
Yes.
that's good to know.
And right now, so that Harbor Master program right now, knock on wood, I don't want to lose anyone or have anything happen, but is a self-sufficient running piece right now. That this person will be an addition and a support for it, but will be focusing primarily on that animal and that shellfish. Sergeant Valonis has everything going smooth with the Harbor Masters right now.
I'm surprised you have 3, or we have 3 part-time or per diem or stipend positions, that we've been able to employ 3 part-time people in that role, right? Like, are they okay with just working half a year?
Yes. Many of them have other jobs doing other things, and this is their summer, their warmer weather
Okay.
gigs, and,
Or
The
college
way-
students?
and the college students are more the harbor master the harbor master helpers. The harbor master assistants, they work really well to coordinate their personal schedules around, so that it all works together and everyone can do their full time.
And I think it's such a vibrant boating community, there's
Yeah.
probably no shortage of people available who might be interested in a role like that, right?
Good to know, thank you.
Yes.
So,
welcome.
are folks in agreement that it rises to the level of 5?
Yes.
Yes.
I do, yes.
5 it is.
Thank you.
Supervision scope, pretty straightforward here.
Here we go, we just ran through that.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say 2, even though it may be 6 sometimes. 6, maybe half the year. I think, to be fair, I think it's probably more of a 2 than a 3. That's my take.
Patty, do you anticipate that changing at all?
I do not.
Okay.
Thoughts? 2 or a 3?
2 is
I have a
fine.
2.
Yeah, I think 2 makes
Two,
sense.
because they're also fractional employees, they're not supervising
Right.
5 full-time.
Right. Yeah, I think it would be unfair to characterize it as a position that has 6 or 7, even though there will be times that there'll be a staff of 6. I think to be fair. Okay, that's a 2, thank you. Physical demands, we know that there are lots of those here.
Yeah.
You talk at the end here about the necessity of doing all sorts of stuff, from bending and mucking around and picking up
Low
seaweed.
tide.
Low tide.
40 to, I think you said, was it 40 to 100 pounds or what?
40 to 100.
40 to 100 pounds, so, okay. So physical demands, that would, a 3 is moderate fatigue. We don't have to worry about a lot of, this person's not gonna be in front of a computer screen on any kind of a regular basis, I would think. I mean, there'll be some office work involved, but,
There will be office work involved, and the fatigue that's described, under physical demands, they need to be capable of doing those things, but they aren't doing them on the regular basis. This is what they could potentially be doing in the event of a crisis, in the event of an emergency. They need to be capable of that, but having supervised the 3 roles, the frequency of which it has to happen isn't, for me, it doesn't rise above a 3.
okay. So you have it as a 3.
I have it as a 3, yes.
I can support that.
Yeah, 5 is
Fine.
kind
I'll say
3 it is.
That includes
Thank
the occasion of getting between 2-legged and 4-legged
It
animals.
does, it sure does.
And I think this may be our final factor, which is working conditions. Evaluates the degree to which there are disagreeable aspects of the job environment from the point of view of employee safety, or in this case, really comfort. The degree of severity of workplace hazards is considered. In evaluating health hazards, we must assume that all reasonable and legal occupational health and safety practices are in place and adhered to. Patty?
I've got this as at a 3.
A 3 is mostly agreeable, some minor disadvantages usually present. Environment could include exposure to heat, cold, humidity, dirt, oil, noise, noxious odors, so forth and so on. Potential hazards could include handling moderately dangerous materials where there's little chance of injury. Radioactive material, the hazardous chemicals in the work area, is a moderate risk for contact with the employee.
I would defer to Patty on this one, so I can support a 3.
Other thoughts?
I think the XO knows that position better than anybody here.
I'm just kind of looking.
Yep. Big time.
You can do that, I can't.
So we're
I
between
mean,
one.
the only thing I
We're looking
see,
at 3 primarily.
the only thing that I see in the 4 category is having personally witnessed RACO getting between domestic animals of great value, and 2 wild dogs that came in from Bromfield Street, traveled a long distance to do a lot of damage, and that was quite a stunning moment. That would come under the category of exposure to severe disagreeable conditions. And that would be an unusual circumstance, but certainly Horizon could find it there, which would bring me to a 3.5, just to pull that into the spectrum, as an ACO primarily.
Yeah.
And obviously, if on the water, all of the potential for boating mishap, which in itself is dangerous because you're dealing in deep water conditions and moving boats and engines.
I think the key will be the word regular.
That's what I was gonna
You know,
say, default to what you said in the
It
beginning.
falls probably somewhere between regular and one-off. My sense is that those things might be more one-off, not one-off, but
Yeah, good
you know,
point. Good point.
infrequently, dangerous but infrequent. I see there's a 3 as well.
Yeah, good points, though.
Yeah.
In the job description, they're very specific about hazardous working conditions.
Yeah.
Very specific.
Yeah.
PCBs, heavy metals, pesticides, raw storage, and they go on and on. With like heavy metals, bacterial contamination. It's, so that's
And in
probably,
your mind, is the degree of frequency there regarding those materials enough to bump it up to a 4 or no?
I don't think so. I still have it at a 3.
Okay.
And again, piece of my train of thought is with the harbor masters out there doing their job and this person is just in a supervisory role, I'm just looking at it in the 2 categories primarily.
Yep.
They could be out there doing the things, but with the frequency, like you said,
Okay.
I think on the harbor master piece, it'll be less
Okay.
than the animal control
Yeah,
and the
good point.
shellfish pieces.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the word regular is, you're right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's important, it's
Great.
relevant.
I'm comfortable with a 3.
As am I.
As am I.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 it is. The only thing, thank you, we've gone through all the factors. The only thing we do at the end here, Patty, before we get to rating is we look at other considerations. And typically they don't apply. You know, what is the volume of the work involved? We cover all that really in the factors. Confidentiality, accuracy required, duties assumed. One of the things we look at is the market, the recruitment. You know, the challenges associated with finding this individual with this broad spectrum of education, certs, training, license to carry, you know, all these things. Which is why I was asking earlier about the candidate pool. Earlier, you didn't seem to be overly concerned about that. You believe that this will be a role that can be appealing and that the market, there's a market out there in terms of the candidate pool.
I do, and I'll give you an example of why, and then you can categorize it however you want. In these individual positions, so for people who work in these individual positions, as far as professional development, you're kind of at your ceiling. This position offers people who have these specialties to have a higher professional development kind of ceiling and work with a program and utilize other skills. So I do think that there is that interest piece for anyone who is working in these individual categories to kind of want to expand themselves in that way.
Okay.
I know that we've received, we haven't done any backgrounds, but we've received emails from people who are interested when this is posted and available. I don't know if they meet the qualifications that we've set forth.
Okay.
But so
you're not coming to us saying this is going to be an extraordinarily hard find.
I'm hoping no, but I'm no.
Okay.
I'm not coming with you to that today.
Okay.
Again, and my hesitation is just the general job market right now with people applying for jobs is my only apprehension. But we have had people say, "Hey,
Okay.
you know,
Is
what are
Is
you going to
it
do
out
with
there
this?"
that this job is going to be posted? It's being reviewed and will be posted?
So I've let people know that we're looking at the opening. So people have heard that our shellfish constable and our animal control officer have, you know, resigned and retired, and there has been interest in the those positions. I haven't shared with anyone exactly what we're, you know, doing, but there is at least buzz around,
Okay.
you know, the jobs,
I
filling the
can give you
positions.
some input. On Tuesday night I had dinner and I won't mention a town, that's not fair, with a surprise birthday party for her father, and she's the ACO of a village not too far from us. And some of the things we talked about is this part of the northeast end of Massachusetts is unique, and that it incorporates oceans, rivers, and also obviously the general equestrian aspect. I mean, 80% of the citizens of this village have 4 lakes, and basically.
Wait a minute, I didn't know that when I moved up here. Just kidding.
Neither do a lot of people who come back here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they don't.
Is that a
find
real
out.
stat?
Well, I'm being
Yeah,
hyper, I'm
aggrandizing
being light and hyperbolic. But the element we talked about is that there are a lot of these people, exactly with the water, ACO aspect, that are in the queue for all of these surrounding village towns. And that were sort of second on the list, and somebody, because of nepotism or inroad or tradition hired from within, that are sitting out there saying, my goodness, I've got all the quals that they hired from within. And I mentioned that to her in general, that would it make sense for our search committee to call the other towns and say, who do you have in the queue? Because they've already been vetted, and they're already standing with all the qualifications, and they have the very same requirements, and they're equestrian as well as dairy communities as well. They have all of the requirements, maybe not as much of the dairy and beef aspect that we have because of the collective universe of farms here that are in the business, but they have the same heavy equestrian group, and obviously then all the water patrol. I mean, the Essex River is more chore than the Merrimack, and more probably other than it lacks the violent tide, but it's a busy spot, and I'm sure that there are people from Ipswich to Essex to Rowley to et al. that are just sitting there waiting for a phone call, and we need to find out who they are.
Yeah.
Let's get it classified, and then we'll find them.
So I have a point of order on the job description at the top where it says supervises. We have listed assistant animal control officers and assistant shellfish constables, both of which we don't have a job description for. Those jobs have not been created at this point. So I don't know that that should be listed as a supervisory role, because if it looks like over the course of the development of the role that we are going to add an assistant animal control officer, some of the duties within the job description may then fall to that person, and we'd have a job description separately.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So I think we just list the, whatever
Harbor
the.
master.
Assistant harbor master.
So is it just the assistant harbor master, it's the harbor master?
It's the, it would be the harbor master program, so it would be the harbor master.
department, or
It would be the harbor master sergeant. And then the harbor master sergeant still oversees the
Right.
assistants and,
So it's just harbor master is how it's listed in our job description?
then harbor
Yeah.
master,
Okay.
perfect, thank you.
So I'm gonna just put supervisors harbor master.
Perfect.
well, the
Okay.
harbor master is the chief of police, right?
So it would be harbor master
Harbor master.
assistants.
Harbor master assistants, or
Yeah.
harbor master sergeant and assistants.
Yeah.
Is maybe a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's I think there's an assistant harbor master, deputy harbor master, that's what we have.
Yes.
Okay.
I just had,
Thank you, Christine.
I think it's a consistent typo here, I caught it 4 times, I just want to be sure. Under number 3, harbor master specific duties and responsibilities on the 2nd page. Number 2, shall ensure the current standing of self and, it should be
assistant.
assistants, TS, right?
Yes.
Not assistants. And you find that same typo down below under number 10. The word assistance in
Yes.
10. And then on the next page, under animal control, number 2, shall ensure the current standing of self and assistants, TS. And one more time that I caught down the bottom of that page, under 5, state animal inspector, number 2, same thing, assistants, change that to TS.
Doesn't replace all on the spell check, huh?
English major, damn.
Great
Good
for
catch.
you. Great catch.
I didn't have anything else. Did anyone else want to discuss other edits? If not, we can
One
see where it sits.
One other word that I have seen in this compilation is it should be the word perform, P-E-R-F-O-R-M. And quite a few places it's shall preform.
Oh, okay,
Spelled
okay. I
incorrectly.
didn't catch that. Thank you.
We'll do a hold.
Yeah,
We'll do
spell
a
check
read
those
and a
as well.
spell check.
Thank you. It would not be the only job description sitting at town hall that still has a typo or two, but nonetheless, let's catch them when we
You
can,
might
so.
want to change motorboats to
I've made
motorboats,
note.
one word.
I've made note of the motorboat.
Where do we sit here, Diane?
Okay, so it
In terms of
comes up as an 18, and I'm assuming based on the description of the availability of individuals to fill the role, a 1, 2, or 3. So a 3 is a role that would be really, really hard to fill. A 2 is there's sufficient pool of candidates, and a 1 is, there's an abundance of candidates that would meet that criteria. So I'm assuming based on the conversation,
Like a 2,
Yep.
what'd you say?
a 2.
Was that what you were gonna say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be a.
So I
Two.
come up with an 18.2.
We should have cards, 1 to 5, and then we can just go.
I would agree with that.
Flip the flipper.
Tony, you good with it, 18.2?
Yes, yeah.
John?
Yes.
Lynn, yes? Mark, yes? Okay,
Okay, so-
18.2.
It sits, we don't currently have a position in the 18.2 category.
Okay,
So it sits above, how do we do this now? So an 18.1 would be the library director, council on aging director, conservation agent. So it sits slightly above that.
uh-huh,
It sits below a 19.2 deputy chief of police, director of inspectional services, which is the building inspector, IT communications manager, town planner, and department of public works director. So it sits below that, but above the conservation agent, and above, if you were to look at the point 2, a 17.2 includes town clerk, harbor master, and treasurer collector. So it sits somewhere in
Yeah,
the
that-
middle of that mix.
feels good to me.
Makes sense.
Want to read that first 3 positions you mentioned, Diane? That
So-
said at a,
Well, it's hard because
Is it
a point, I'm
18.1?
doing point 2,
understand,
so 17.2 would be town clerk, harbor master, treasurer collector. Then I go to an 18.1, library director, council on aging director,
that's what I
conservation
wrote
agent.
down. That's an 18.1.
18.1.
Those 3 positions again?
Library director, so for
Yeah.
all intents and purposes, it's an 18.
Okay,
Library director,
yep,
council on aging director, and
Yeah.
conservation agent.
okay. And I would think that the pool of candidates available for this would be a shallower pool than for any of those 3 positions, which is why I could justify the 2. And I don't know. Thoughts, feels right to me in terms of the org chart.
Yeah, it's going to be a tougher find.
Yeah, but I mean, just the overall org chart, not just the availability of
Yeah.
candidates. It feels like it sits in the right spot.
It does.
Seems to fit
Director
completely.
level, big job.
Very, very responsible
Yeah,
position.
big job.
It is.
Big job.
And it's and so is the COA. I mean, she's got a whole lot of stuff to think.
Lynn?
Lynn?
Yeah.
You can tell, right? So education is just kind of a little bit of a surprise to me, but maybe not really. So to be above the library director, to be above the treasurer, clerk, all of those positions, those are higher education level required, I would think,
Yep.
than an associate's degree.
Yep.
So scope of responsibility, I think, when you're out there in the public and the ocean and all of that, I can see that being larger, but it just kind of,
This is why it's difficult sometimes. We've talked about the apple versus the orange.
yeah.
This position also requires lots of certs that some of those other positions don't
Yeah.
require. So to me, there's kind of a balancing out there that you wouldn't necessarily expect that a bachelor's degree would be required here. But on the other hand, I don't think it takes away from the overall breadth of the responsibilities. It's tough to blend education into, the overall enormity of the job. So,
Mark, may I?
please.
When I looked at it, I think of it, if we're comparing, apples to bananas here, I look at it as somebody who has a bachelor's degree versus somebody who does, trade school in manual labor. Like you said, there's a lot of certification, specialized training that needs to go in to each of these positions, and their associate's degree is really so that they can kind of read and comprehend, bylaws and mass general laws and things like that, that they'll also have training in. So that's how I looked at the associate's degree when I examined it, is it's not the associate's degree and done. They're getting training in their specialized areas that a bachelor's degree or anything higher than an associate's degree wouldn't necessarily give me that is applicable to this job.
Right, and that's why the second bullet item number 4 says full apprenticeship in mandated designated proficiency trades.
Yeah.
In this case, the different serves, the license to carry, so forth.
Yes.
Okay. Lynn, you okay with that?
So the certifications that are required, so knowledgeable about bylaws, general laws, mass general laws, codes in the areas of shellfish constable, harbor master, and animal control. Certified and educated in the areas of shellfish constable, animal control, and harbor master. Are those all certifications?
Yes, so they will be able to achieve those bullets by doing the trainings that will be provided to them.
Okay, and they will be certified.
I think in one area it says certified or within 6 months achieve certification.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
ultimately, this
Oh, yeah,
position
it'll be
is supposed to
required,
be
yeah.
certified in certain areas. So those are the only real 3 things that they would be certified in.
Yeah.
What about,
Do
What about
they
something?
need, oh, sorry,
no, that's right.
CPR, first responder,
That's what I was gonna ask about.
Okay.
Bunch of stuff.
motor vehicle, boat operator's license,
Yeah.
shellfish
There's at least a half a dozen either certs or other requirements that most positions don't have.
And
Okay.
at the ACO level, weapons training, will he or
Yes,
she?
it speaks to, it speaks to that, and the police department takes care of any qualification that needs to happen annually for that.
Okay, so
Okay.
are we good at an 18.2? Diane? Mark, yes?
Does it fit with your earliest abstract when you first opened up, where the position will roll back a little bit after 1 year, because it will, its familiarity and its nuances will be less cumbersome, less onerous 1 year in?
Yes,
So does the 18.2, is that fungible? Does that mean it rolls back to something less later?
No,
I feel like we ironed that out in the
Not-
beginning.
Not
think
given
we landed on-
not given the
yeah.
breadth of responsibility. I
Yeah.
don't think
All
so.
right, just want to make sure that we.
Yeah.
all right.
Good? Tony?
Good.
Yep, that's it.
Lynn?
Yes.
18.2 it is. Thank you, Patty.
No, thank you all.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
I.
Yeah.
Aye. Thank you all.